أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I greet you with the greetings of peace and tranquility and invoke the blessings and the grace of God upon each and every one of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to begin by thanking those who made an effort to be here. I know you probably had some other things to do at this time, and I hope that in the coming hour or two you will have realized that you did not go out of your way to come here. Actually, there was something that you gained by being here this afternoon. Secondly, I'd like to also express my appreciation and thanks for those who put this program together. Obviously, programs like this don't automatically spring into being. There are people, brothers, sisters, who cooperated and assisted each other in making it possible for us to convene here this afternoon. So my thanks goes out to them also. The subject matter that I'd like to focus on with your presence and your attention has to do with the bad press and the negative propaganda that Muslims and Islam nowadays, and for the past several years at least, if not for many, many years before that, have been the subject of. Anyone who tunes in to radio programs or is watching TV or reads the daily newspaper realizes that Muslims are almost a terrible thing. And this is not natural. People are not terrible by who they are, especially if they are Muslims. So there's something about this. There's something about this offensive presentation of Islam, and hopefully we'll try to put our finger on the culprits who are behind the malignment of Islam. There's a word that has come into usage in the past, I would say, several years, and that word is Islamofascist. We have not heard that word before. It would be very interesting to try to track down where that word originated. I haven't found anyone who researched or put a little effort to find out where this combination of word or wording came from. Obviously, when you say Islamofascist, you have the word Islam on one side, then you have the word fascist on the other side, and this is almost a contradiction in terms. You can't be Islamic and be fascist at the same time, and conversely, you can't be fascist and a Muslim or Islamic at the same time. So this is a very odd combination of words. But if I were to, and I'm a person who follows the media and does quite a bit of reading about subjects Islamic, if I were to take an educated guess, I would say that it's not far-fetched to trace the origins of the word Islamofascist to individuals or groups of people or classes of interest that are centered around Zionist Israel. To them, Israel is almost the center of the world, and any group of people who dare criticize or expose the policies and the practices of the Israeli government become targets. They become targets in as far as word usage is concerned. Therefore, words have to be clobbered together to defame the particular individuals or the particular organizations that are opposed to the Zionist occupation of Palestine and opposed to the imperialist American collaboration with that Zionist occupation of Palestine. And I know from taking a very quick look at the audience here that most of you are familiar with Islamic history, and therefore you should know that there is an Islamic wave of the future. And those who are keen on Israeli security are very sensitive to, and I dare say, very alarmed at the fact that there is a groundswell of Islamic self-determination that is taking place in the Muslim world. So something in their own minds, these types of people, they think that, well, we have to do something about this. And as far as words are concerned, we have to hammer together a word that can project a negative or an offending image of Muslims, and hence we have the word Islamofascist. Let me, for those of you who come from an American background, let me remind you that what is taking place currently, as far as the bad press that the Muslims have, is not a current phenomenon. It's not something that just happened because of 9/11 or because of an Islamic revolution or because of Islamic struggle here or there. If we wanted to trace this, we can go back some time. If you take a look at the media in the United States, you'd find that way back when, you can say when TV was still black and white, there were very offensive images of Arabs and of Muslims. Some of you, I don't know if you're old as I am or older, you can recall there was a song about Ahab the Arab, the sheik of the burning sand. There was Harem Scarum. Remember those movies back when? Harem Scarum, for those of you who may be a little lost here, harem is in reference to the haram, which is the womenfolk of Muslims. So there was this combination of words in which some men would go into a tent where there's Muslim women and say harem scarum, scare the harems, this type of thing. The word camel jockey serves as a background to the pejorative language that's used today. Some of you may have seen The Exorcist. Recall the thriller that came out at the beginning of the 1970s. Can anyone recall at the beginning of that movie where the first shots were from? Yeah, they were from Iraq, from northern Iraq. Supposed to be the land of sorcery or evil or the magic with the evil spirits and the dead and the haunting and this type of thing. So to be factual about the matter, today's Islamofascist label, it has not come from nowhere. There's a good background and depth to it, which gives it the momentum that it has today in the media. But if we were to try to zero in on a particular time where this pejorative language and imagery about Muslims all of a sudden took on a life of its own, became a full-fledged, almost motion picture for everyone to watch, we can easily say that was 9/11. That's when things really came together for the pro-Israeli Zionist crowd. And here is where we began to have things happening that are no longer limited to Hollywood, but now have become public policy or official behavior by governments and nation states. In this post-9/11 presentation of the malignment of facts concerning Muslims, there are some people who stand out. That you can see them, they're unmistakable, you can't avoid them. They're here and there speaking about Islam, and against Muslims. One of the names that come to mind, I'm just going to drop a few names. One of the names is Daniel Pipes, one of these professors here on the West Coast. I guess he's in California somewhere, who keeps on. It seems like he doesn't run out of energy when it comes to bad-mouthing Muslims. No basis to what he's saying. The person cannot, I think, sustain an intellectual round of presentations in front of a crowd like this. Have we ever seen Daniel Pipes or Steve Emerson or Martin Kramer or their likes in front of within a solid academic presentation of points of view? No. Challenge Daniel Pipes or his crowd, the ones who were going around the United States, I think it was the third week of October, sponsoring this so-called Islamofascist Awareness Week, which I understand the university here also witnessed part of that activity. Why are they scared to have a panel that includes their point of view, but also includes a point of view that disagrees with them? You would think someone with intellectual integrity could withstand and defend their points of view when their points of view are exposed to those who disagree with them. But in this case, obviously, I even understood from an individual or two as I was coming in that some of those who disagreed with this Islamofascist point of view were barred from coming to the activity here on this campus. Why? Why are people scared? You're scared to have an opposite point of view presented? Nothing to be scared about. To the contrary, if you're an academic, you spent most of your life researching and reading and knowing that there are other points of view, you should welcome another point of view to be juxtaposed with your own. But in this case, they're just afraid, I guess, of the truth to surface, and let you, the audience, decide which point of view will carry the day. Not them, not Daniel Pipes, Steve Emerson, Martin Kramer. And we can, at another level of things, we can add on to these Bernard Lewis, who is supposed to be another one of these well-read historians who advises, by the way, Vice President Cheney on policies pertaining to the Muslim world, to the Islamic hemisphere of this world. And Henry Kissinger himself, who goes to the president in the White House and tells him, you can't give up on these policies. What is he talking about? He's talking about the global war on terrorism, abbreviated during Rumsfeld time as GWOT. Says you have to keep on, you have to press on with these policies. And they sort of give, they meaning Bernard Lewis and Henry Kissinger, give Dick Cheney and President George Bush the type of moral boosting that they may need to go into the international warfare against areas in Asia and in Africa where they perceive that there might be an outbreak of Islamic self-determination in these areas. Another sensitive issue that is not brought up in public settings, some individuals may be whispering this behind the scenes, but not much is discussed in public forums pertaining to the individuals now in the American government and in the decision-making process here in the United States, who are thrilled and very satisfied to see that there is an attempt at creating a public opinion that is averse to Muslims and to Islam. This crowd of people is called the Neoconservatives. I'm sure you've heard the word before. You're much ahead of the President of the United States, who it is reported was in Kennebunkport in Maine on a break with his father, Bush, President number 41. So Bush, 43, asks Bush, 41, Dad, I hear a lot, this was like 2 summers ago. He says, Dad, I hear a lot of people speaking about these neoconservatives. I've heard the word a lot. Could you just explain to me who these neoconservatives are? And the father says to the son, do you want names or do you want the concept? He says, no, just give me the concept. When they say neoconservatives, everyone is saying this. What do they mean by it? What's the idea? So the father says to the son, the 41st President of the United States answers the 43rd President of the United States, says, son, in one word, it means Israel. So these neoconservatives who now get a kick out of giving Islam a black eye in public, who are they? When we say neoconservatives, who are we talking about? Well, I mean, I don't have an exhaustive list of who they are, but some of the names that have been flashed in the media for so long are such individuals as Douglas Feith, who used to be in the Pentagon, Paul Wolfowitz, who also used to be in the Pentagon. Feith also was close to Cheney's office. There is in the circle of President Bush, there are individuals who speak to him on occasions, such as Podahertz, Elliot Abrams, who's supposed to be the point man on American foreign policy towards the Middle East, who's also a relative of Podahertz. Just to name a few, and then of course we have Michael Chertoff, who is the head of Homeland Security. And of course, we read these names, but there hasn't really been enough information. I'm just throwing this out there. Obviously, I'm not going to receive an answer today or tomorrow, and I don't think you will, but it's something that you probably want to think about and pursue, because these are the types who glee at the fact that Muslims are being maligned in public opinion. But the question is, these Americans who are in charge of sensitive policies towards Muslim territories in the world, Muslim areas of the world, Muslim countries of the world, of course they're American citizens, but my question to you, and this is the one that needs a little effort, are they also Israeli citizens? Are they dual citizens, Americans, Israelis at the same time, and therefore they are running this show of dehumanizing, basically dehumanizing Muslims around the world, saying that Muslims now are terrorists and they hate Christians and Jews. I'll get to that a little later about Islamic texts. Going back to the sources and the roots as far as Muslims' relationship with Jews and Christians. But these are the types who are getting a kick out of this whole policy of reducing Muslims in this country to almost civil slavery. Muslims experience this among other places at ports of entry into the country. If you happen to be a Muslim and you're flying into this country at any of these airports, as an example, you're more than likely to be fingered out. Come here, we want to speak to you. There's some questions we want to ask you. And by the way, we want to go through your luggage and your baggage, everything you have, piece by piece. And in some instances, if you miss your flight, if you happen to have a connecting flight or something, it doesn't matter. You miss your flight. And it seems like there's no recourse to something like this. In the name of what has become national security, more accurately stated, Israeli security, in the name of Israeli security now, Muslims have to be tagged as terrorists or potential terrorists or terrorist sympathizers or guilty by association. If a Muslim knows another Muslim and another Muslim knows another one, and the sequence goes down to 10 people, and that 10th person happens to have been in a country in the world in which there is a low-intensity warfare of some type, then he's already a suspect. That 10th person, through an association of 10 other people, becomes a suspect. And I think it's about time that right now there should be some serious pursuit of these individuals these potentially dual loyalists who are bringing upon this country this type of policy that makes virtually every Muslim a suspect in the eyes of authority. And I don't have the documents in front of me, but according to some sources, Chertoff, who's head of Homeland Security himself, is an Israeli citizen, and his mother was one of the individuals who established the Israeli Mossad. If we begin to realize these facts, we begin to understand why Islam has a black eye in public opinion. Which brings us down to the certain organizations and outfits in the United States that are acting as foreign agents for the Israeli government. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League of Bnei B'rith, AIPAC, the largest, most influential Jewish lobby group in the United States, the Zionist Organization of America, and the list can go on and on. There's an assortment of high-powered organizations in the United States that will do anything, virtually anything, to annul any influence Muslims may have, positive influence Muslims may have in this country upon the decision-making process. Now, if we understand that we have this structure of organizations and individuals that range from the academic to the financial to the authoritative, then we have the small fries, the ones that appear to our eyes almost every evening. Individuals such as Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and Michael Savage and Glenn Beck and the rest of these that we encounter. These are the ones who get their marching orders from this superstructure, and then they begin to present it as talking points to you and me, the consuming public. And we're supposed to believe, if we don't believe everything that they say, much of it goes down, seeps down into the conscience of the country. And if you listen to them very closely, you understand that they are defending the national interest of the Israeli nation state. Which brings us to that little effort, which is called Islamofascist Awareness Week, that was put together by a person called David Horowitz. David Horowitz belongs to this same crowd of people. Back in the 60s and 70s, the person was a lefty. He was on the left of the American political spectrum. And as happened to his neoconservative colleagues, he had a change of heart during the Reagan administration, so he converted from being on the political left to being on the political right, where he is today. And the person seems to know something next to nil when it comes to Islam. He has a big mouth, though. He rants on and on. Give him the opportunity and he'll speak, not much of it making much sense. So he strings together a group of individuals who are assigned different campuses, and then they blurt out their uneducated mind on things Islamic. As I said earlier, I wish they had enough intellectual integrity to have the opposite point of view presented when they were speaking, but being that they are void of that, I think we need not comment on their rants. Which brings us to, I think, the matter, the contextual core of the matter, which is the fear that is being generated in the public concerning Muslims. We as Muslims know, we who are informed Muslims know there's no basis for it. A Muslim is not a terrorist, a Muslim is not a reactionary, a Muslim is not a person who wants to drag the world back into the ages of inequity and ignorance and a primitive way of life. This is all common sense. It's even somewhat disturbing to have to speak to this issue in such a way. But there is one particular area that I want you to be aware of, because it seems like this is not going to go away soon. And that particular area is to try to antagonize the relationships in this world between Muslims and Christians. I think this is an area that's going to be worked on much more than has been the case in the past. There's going to be a lot of efforts to try to make Muslims believe that Christians are their enemies, and to make Christians believe that Muslims are their enemies. And to try to diffuse this at the source, at least from the Islamic side, I can't speak for the Christian side. I think it would have made for a very good presentation here if we had maybe an informed and enlightened Christian who could speak to this matter with objectivity. But from an Islamic point of view, let me go back to Scripture and quote for you. Of course, I can't do this in an exhaustive manner because the contents on this subject in the Qur'an are almost without end. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to be selective and choose some verses from the Qur'an. I'll quote them to you in their original Arabic wording, and then I'll also present you with the English equivalency of that meaning, being that English is the common language that we all communicate with here. The first ayah says, the first verse in the Qur'an says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا أَرْبَابًا مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَقُولُوا اشْهَدُوا بِأَنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ. This verse delivers the following meaning. Say, O Muhammad, and therefore the rest of you Muslims, declare the following. O people of Scripture, this is our address to those who follow the Old Testament and the New Testament. Come to a common ground between you and us, between us and you. And what is that common ground? That we shall conform to no one except God, and that we shall not equate others with God, and that none of us should overlord over others of us. This is the common grounds and the common understanding that we should develop among ourselves. But then, if you decide to relinquish or turn down this opportunity or this request, then bear witness. This is we, the Muslims, speaking to people of Scripture, to those who consider themselves Christians and those who consider themselves Jews. If you decide not to take this offer, then bear witness that we are subjects of God. We, meaning the committed Muslims, are subjects of God. Meaning, if you choose not to be subjects of God in this meaning that we just expressed to you, then the least you can do is say that we are trying our best to honor that role. That's one verse in the Qur'an. Now, I don't know how anyone can read any hostility or any tension or any misunderstanding between Muslims on one side and people of Scripture on the other side. That defies reason. Another verse from the Holy Qur'an, and I'm going down to the basics. I'm not saying what so-and-so says or another person says and quoting you mortal human beings. I'm quoting God and Scripture itself, to which Muslims refer themselves and by which Muslims measure and judge themselves. So another verse in the Qur'an says, قُولُوا أَمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَالْأَسْبَاطِ وَمَا أُوتِيَ مُوسَى وَعِيسَى وَمَا أُوتِيَ النَّبِيُّونَ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. Now, also, the English rough meaning of this ayah goes as follows. Say, the command here is God's command to his committed subjects. Say, we are committed to God, and we are also committed to that which has been revealed to Abraham and to Ishmael and to Isaac and to the children of Israel, and to what other prophets have been vouchsafed aforetime, and to that which has been revealed to Moses and to Jesus. Now, if you decide, you meaning people of Scripture, if you decide otherwise, you can't see things in this light, and this is really has been a historical issue, and the current political and military atmosphere has complicated the matter even more. But if you decide you can't see things this way, then we declare that we are subjects to God in this meaning, and with this historical depth, and with this current responsibility that we bear. So what is it in all of this that raises the ire of some sick minds and souls that go around maligning the Muslims? It's not understandable. There's another verse in the Qur'an that says, لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُم مَّوَدَّةً الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ مِنْهُمْ قِسِّيسِينَ وَرُهْبَانًا وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. This is an ayah that in some people's minds may serve to polarize relationships between Muslims and people of Scripture. And this ayah means the following: you will most certainly find those who are most intense in their hostility towards the committed Muslims, those who are guilty of shirk. Shirk is a word that refers to the multi-authoritarian sources in life, meaning a person doesn't recognize God as his authority. He wants other authorities besides him. So those who accept other authorities besides God in their life will express intense hostility to those who only show and demonstrate that their only source of authority is God, and that's understandable. But then, in addition to that, those who also express intense hostility towards committed Muslims are the Zionists. And this is a fact of life. We can see it in today's world. The Zionists will do anything and then justify it on their way to virtually committing genocide against the people from whom they stole lands, territories, and properties. So why does anyone get upset if we're trying to quote a verse in the Qur'an that has its verification in reality? That doesn't mean Muslims hate Jews. It means that Zionists hate Muslims. And what are we supposed to do? And then the same verse goes on to say, and you will most certainly find those who are closer in affection to the committed Muslims, those who say that we are Christians. That is because among these Christians you will find priests and rabbis who do not display any hubris, any arrogance. So why is the Christian world getting upset with the Muslims? Is there anything in the sources of Islam that would make a Christian hostile towards the Muslims? Besides, in our Islamic history, let me just cover three areas in which at the dawn of the prophetic era, 1400 years ago in Arabia, the last prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his, when he first received revelation, the first person he came in contact with after his wife was Waraqa ibn Nawfal, who is known to have been influenced by Christian scripture. And then before that, when Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his, on his way, he went to Damascus once or twice in his lifetime. He met with a Christian monk, but Muhammad was very young at the time. And then after revelation and the mission of the prophet, meaning after he was 40 years of age, there was a Christian delegation that came from Najran, which is currently an area straddling the borders of Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and they visited the prophet in his masjid in Medina. Besides, Muslims and Christians share the concept of Jesus as the Messiah and Mary as the Virgin. It takes, with this commonality, and as I said, I can't exhaust all the material on this subject, but with this commonality between Muslims and Christians, there must be some very serious attempts and endeavors by those who don't like Muslims and don't like Christians to have both of them hate each other. Can we identify who these common enemies of both Muslims and Christians are? Now, when we say Muslims and Christians, there's an affinity between them. That doesn't mean that within the Muslim context or within the Christian context, we don't have bad governments. We have plenty of bad governments, tyrannical rulers. There's an abundance of them. But we can't say just because, let's say, there's a dictator in the United States, then all Christians are bad. Or just because there's a despot in Saudi Arabia, that all Muslims are bad. We have to weed out these spoilers and try as much as possible to identify these common enemies and not confuse the issues. Because much of the confusion comes where we identify imperialism as part of the Christian context. And I'm using the word Christian here in a loose sense, but where's imperialism located? Is it located in Mecca or Medina? Did it originate there? Or somewhere in Africa or Asia? Or did imperialism, and before it colonialism, did it begin in areas that are referred to as being Christian areas? So let us advance our thoughts a little and try to clean our internal house of these bad influences that are not only plundering other people's lands and subjecting other peoples to policies of starvation and dislocation, but are also right now threatening the nature and the ecosystem that we all share. It's no longer a vice that is social and political. It has become a policy in life that is threatening the globe as we know it. So we need to get together on this. And we won't be able to do anything if those troublemakers behind the scenes are busy instigating and inflaming hostile passions in our midst, as they are doing and will continue to do. I will. I know the time is running short, but I will try to end it with the following observation. This Islamofascism type of language, obviously it's very offensive. It's not accurate. It's rather a distortion of who the Muslims are and what Islam is. But let's put the shoe on the other foot. And let's say, how would you feel, if you're a Christian or a Jew listening, how would you feel if someone came and said that that America is a Christo-fascist, or Americans are Christo-fascist people? How would you feel if you're a Jew and someone said that the Jewish people are Judeo-fascists? Of course, you'd be incensed. You wouldn't accept that. So how come there's not a voice of opposition to this systemic use of the word? I think even President Bush at one time used the word. Maybe he was advised better by some of those in his surroundings who told him, wait a minute, we can't go on, saying this word like that. Let's stop using it. But definitely you'll find in what is called the right-wing media over here, in the print media, in the press, on TV shows, the talk shows, everywhere, the word is used commonly and almost, mainstream now. No one seems to care. And luckily, we Muslims, we have not steeped that low to say that, and even though if we want to look closely at it, there would be more credibility in saying that Israel and the Zionist occupation of Palestine could possibly be called Judeo-fascism. We don't say it, but an argument can be made for it. But you never can make an argument that if you look at Muslim behavior in the world, the Muslim peoples in the world, that they are Islamofascists. I think I will end with that note. I hope I gave you enough mental ammunition to use when in the future these matters and these subjects are brought to your attention. A lot of work still has to be done. The air has to be cleared, and the troublemakers behind the scenes have to be exposed. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I end by greeting you once again with the greetings of peace and felicity, the greetings of grace and benediction. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imam Asi.